Well, this is the craziest damn thing. I spent about 15 minutes, I guess, maybe a little more, on part one of the House of Krupp, and then as soon as that was uploaded, which I thought was uploaded, then I did part two, which many of you may have already seen. So now what I have to do, being all this just uh, came off the top of my head when I mean the facts and all are right, but the the order was just the way it ends up when I start rambling on. I've got to try to figure out uh, uh, how to catch you up in less time so that we end up where part two is. So here goes. The House of Krupp. This is comparable to maybe the DuPonts uh, or maybe um, oh, uh, Carnegie or someone, but they were a family that controlled the heavy industry of Germany, and we're talking about all your battleships, all your steel, all your heavy military equipment, anything that dealt with heavy machinery was coming out of the House of Krupp. To make now I got to cut some time out here. So to make some story a little shorter, after the First World War, they were all arrested and tried as war criminals because they supplied all the major armament and arms and you name it, cannons, everything, and they were all put in jail. The House of Krupp. They found out very quickly that you can't cut the head off and expect the machinery to run. So in an attempt to rebuild Germany, they let the people from the House of Krupp out of jail, and they let them reorganize, and then heavy industry in Germany was up and running when Hitler took over. Now, the House of Krupp was ultimately responsible for the same deal in World War II, and they were also prosecuted as war criminals after World War II, and several of them, well, they were all released, and some of them weren't allowed to go back in business, but for the most part they were, and if they weren't allowed, they still ran the business from the sidelines, and they found out that you cannot run heavy industry, could not return to Germany, and nor could the economy of Germany become successful without the House of Krupp. Now, I tell this story for one reason. All of a sudden things went a little dark there. Because what happened in Iraq is very similar. We went in, and instead of, we knew we were going to go in, and we knew we were going to take out the industry temporarily, and we were going to rebuild this as, quote, an American-style democracy, which was absurd in the first place when you have two factions like the Sunni and Shia, both fighting for power in the same country. But instead, when we bombed, instead of bombing the electric lines, we blew up the power stations. Now, to this day, they still don't have the same amount of power that was available when Saddam Hussein ruled. And how many years has that been? And thanks to Halliburton, they probably never will. The money pit, the amount of money Halliburton steals on every project never leaves enough money to finish it or do it properly. And Halliburton, I don't know if you're familiar, but 7 U.S. soldiers died being electrocuted, taking showers from the work Halliburton did. Couldn't keep the wires from the water source. Now, if that isn't criminal, and I can guarantee you nobody will be prosecuted for those 7 deaths of young American soldiers. But anyway, we go in, we bomb the hell. Not only we don't take out a few vital bridges, we got to take out every bridge. This is shock and awe, and it served absolutely not even no purpose. It was very detrimental to the ultimate purposes that even the fools in Washington thought they were going to do and make this into a workable democracy. But we bombed literally everything. So once we did go in there was nothing left. We had to rebuild the entire infrastructure of the oil industry, the pipelines, the roads, the bridges, the airports, everything. As I said, we knew we could have taken out power lines, and that's all you want to do: take out the power lines, cut the power off. You don't blow up the power plant, but that was shock and all. So we ended up destroying the whole infrastructure, which who knows if it'll ever get back to where it was. So our 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 original intent was after the first incident in the first Gulf War was to keep Saddam and Iran at each other's necks so that that was a balance of power. Well, now we had no balance of power. Now we were the balance of power trying to offset Iran, and we still might be in deep trouble there. But what else we did when we went into the country? We destroyed all the power structure. We said that no Ba'ath could run anything, and the member of the Ba'ath Party, and that this eliminated everybody that knew how to run any machinery, any kind of factory, any kind of electric plant. And what we did was we tried to allow the people that had no power before to run these things, and they had no knowledge of it at all. And to this day, we're just now realizing that maybe we have to let a few Ba'aths in to run the factories and reestablish the factory system and the power system. But when you go in, you cut the head off of of the of, of the power of the power structure when no one knows how to run anything, and you tell the people that do know how to run anything that they're not allowed to run anything, then obviously nothing gets done. And that was the trouble with America, and that's the relation of the House of Krupp. Now I know I left a lot of parts out because I'm already 6.5 minutes into this. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is simply that you cannot go in and expect. This is what happened to colonial Africa. Uh, all the European nations that were had an interest in Africa, um, uh, France and Holland and England. What they all did is they wouldn't even allow the people to learn the language, so that they were instructed to do this and do that. But once they left, there was no one there that could run anything. Well, that's what we did in Iraq, and hopefully now we're getting to where we'll allow the Ba'aths. You know, they've been out of power for 10 years to allow some of them to get in there and use the education they have and to run this country properly. Now, in the next part, I talk a little bit about Afghanistan, and uh, hopefully, I didn't leave out too much, so that the second part makes a lot of sense. But I'm sorry about that. I had no idea what the time limit was on these, or I would have made this a three-parter. Thank you for your time.